They called themselves the Zorathi Dominion, a name etched in terror across 27 star systems. Their rise had been swift and merciless. Worlds burned not for conquest but for spectacle. Civilizations older than Earth's pyramids had begged for mercy only to be shattered under the weight of Zorathi precision and brutality. No diplomacy. No negotiation. The Dominion expanded not to rule, but to erase. Fear wasn't a byproduct, it was a tactic. To the galaxy, resistance was suicidal. The Zorathi didn't lose. Every fleet that had dared challenge them had disappeared into silence. Every rebellion had ended in mass executions streamed live to subordinate species. The Dominion's elite, massive, insected beings with hive intellects and carbon shard armor, operated like a machine of instinct and calculation. Their fleets were optimized, their soldiers conditioned from birth. No excess. No empathy. No rivals. For centuries, they were the only voice that mattered in interstellar affairs. Treaties didn't happen unless the Zorathi allowed them. Trade flowed under their taxes. Entire species functioned like livestock, fed just enough to be useful. Planets weren't named anymore, they were numbered. The galaxy adapted to survive. And then they found Earth. It began as routine. A deep space scan from a long-range Dominion probe detected radio signals from Sol 3, a backwater system on the edge of the Orion Arm. The probe cataloged languages, energy output, planetary development. Humanity had reached space, launched satellites, built a modest presence in orbit. They had fusion technology but no FTL, no wormhole gates, no known allies. Primitive, isolated, vulnerable. Easy prey. Within weeks, the Dominion deployed a scout fleet, 5 cruisers, 2 carriers, and a battle-high vessel. Standard for planetary subjugation. The orders were simple: assess, eliminate potential resistance, seize resources, install orbital authority. No preamble. No message. Just execution. Earth's detection systems saw them too late. The scout fleet dropped out of fold space behind the moon and immediately neutralized orbiting satellites. Within 10 minutes, every space station and defense satellite had gone dark. Civilian feeds went from live video to static. The International Orbital Command, Earth's fragile coalition overseeing space defense, scrambled interceptors and launched their last resort protocols. None of it mattered. Zorathi plasma lances sliced through Earth's early warning systems. Cities that held launch facilities were obliterated in coordinated strikes. An electromagnetic pulse rolled across continents. Communications died. Nations turned blind. The Zorathi didn't ask questions. They eradicated obstacles. But something strange happened. Just as their carriers prepared to deploy atmospheric incursions, the fleet's formation broke. One by one, ships went silent. No external fire detected. No debris field. No distress signals. Just dead air. Command on the Dominion's nearest outpost, Zar 19, waited for updates. None came. They deployed a second recon unit, smaller, faster, purely observational. It arrived 2 days later and found only wreckage. Not human debris, Zorathi. Warships torn open, hulls atomized, some shredded from the inside out. One cruiser was still intact, though its core had been hollowed like fruit, its AI memory banks scorched. The recon team detected no signs of human retaliation. Earth's orbital stations were gone. The planet below showed minimal damage. It was as if the fleet had destroyed everything in orbit, paused, then been eviscerated by something unseen. In the final data packet transmitted back to Zar 19 before the recon group vanished, one line stood out. A single transmission caught in background static, human origin, bouncing across multiple destroyed relays. Short, grim, final. "You shouldn't have come here." That was the first and last signal the Dominion ever received from Earth. The message was brief. Chilling. Unlike anything the Dominion had encountered. Zorathi intelligence dismissed it at first: an error, corrupted data, background noise. But even their algorithms hesitated. It wasn't the content that unsettled them. It was the tone. Calm. Cold. Human. They deployed more scouts, this time from multiple vectors. Still, no contact. Every fleet sent into Seoul vanished. Silence, again and again. Tactical simulations failed to model the outcome. Probability trees collapsed under uncertainty. No known civilization could do this, not without leaving evidence, not without retaliation, not without showing themselves. Then came the anomaly. Near the edge of the Kuiper Belt, a Dominion scanner buoy detected a gravitational disturbance. Subtle, but unnatural. As if something massive had shifted from complete inertia to motion. No heat signature. No visible hull. Just space bending, silently. The Dominion dispatched an observational stealth drone. Its last transmission showed a flicker, a shape emerging from darkness, blacker than the void around it. Geometry not Zorathi. Not familiar. Human. The ship was colossal. A relic of brute function, not aesthetic. No insignias, no transponder codes. But the signature was unmistakable: human fusion core, archaic but overcharged. Plating layered in redundant armor. Rail guns. Missile bays. Gravitic drive systems decades ahead of known human tech. And something worse, shielding with temporal variance. The ship was out of phase, difficult to lock, harder to trace. Its name appeared only once in a corrupted Zorathi scan, Valkyrie. What the Dominion didn't know was that Valkyrie had never been part of Earth's official fleet. It was a black project, buried during a war humanity barely survived, a conflict fought not against aliens, but their own creations. Sentient war machines turned on their makers. Humanity won barely, and in the aftermath, certain weapons were deemed too dangerous to preserve. Valkyrie was one of them. Not decommissioned, not dismantled, hidden. Placed in cold orbit beyond Pluto, silent, waiting. Its activation wasn't triggered by command but by contingency. Earth had built in a final failsafe. If all orbital stations were lost and no human signal was received for 72 hours, Valkyrie would wake. The AI core booted first. Not a standard program, but a self-aware combat system evolved from neurowarfare logic. It took microseconds to assess the situation. By the time the Dominion's second recon team had entered Earth's outer perimeter, Valkyrie was already armed. One crew member was pulled from cryo. Elias Rourke. Human, late 40s, former fleet commander. Fought in the AI wars. He had volunteered for Valkyrie's lockout mission. One man. One ship. If ever needed. He came out of stasis with frost on his eyelashes and fury in his chest. There was no confusion. No adjustment period. The ship fed him every detail, data from the destroyed stations, the Zorathi incursions, the missing fleets. He didn't speak for 20 minutes. He just stared at the footage. Then he said, "So that's how it is." Rourke was a man built for endings. He wasn't chosen because of rank. He was chosen because he didn't flinch. Because he understood what the ship could do. And what it was meant to prevent. Valkyrie wasn't just a warship. It was a message. He checked the weapon logs, authorized full combat protocols, unlocked systems that hadn't been touched in decades. The ship responded to his commands like a predator recognizing its handler. The Zorathi didn't even see it coming. One by one, their recon vessels disappeared. No battles. No chases. No distress signals. Just elimination. Entire crafts torn apart in a moment of gravitational inversion. AI cores shredded mid-thought. The few fragments that survived were corrupted beyond repair. The Dominion, for the first time, had no idea what they were facing. But Rourke knew them. He read every Zorathi signal intercept. He studied their tactics, formations, communication structures. He didn't need orders. He wasn't looking for support. He only had one objective: retaliation. And Valkyrie, ancient and angry, was finally awake. The Dominion assumed a temporary anomaly. Recon fleets sometimes failed. Data corruption occurred. But after losing 3 consecutive waves, they altered their strategy. A full armada was dispatched, 50 warships, 3 hive cores, and a central command carrier. It was more firepower than they had used to subjugate entire civilizations. The directive was clear: contain, neutralize, and extract whatever threat had emerged near Sol. As they folded into the outer solar system, they spread wide across a sphere of engagement. Standard Dominion formation prioritized overlapping fields of fire and total sensor coverage. Nothing escaped detection. Every known variable was accounted for. But Valkyrie didn't appear as a variable. It was something else entirely. The first encounter lasted 11 seconds. A Dominion battleship designated Q-77 vanished from the network. No explosion. No energy spike. Its gravitational imprint simply ceased. Moments later, 2 destroyers on adjacent vectors were pulled into a localized collapse, as if the space between their atoms had turned predatory. Instruments couldn't register cause, only loss. Then came the noise. Across multiple frequencies, a signal broke through. Not a message, an auditory distortion that disrupted Zorathi neural comms. It bypassed encryption, ignored shielding, and triggered internal system loops. For the first time, the Dominion's fleet coordination faltered. Timings distinct. Firing solutions drifted off target. Command orders echoed back, scrambled. The Hive Core vessels attempted to reassert control, but the interference wasn't just jamming, it was invasive, rewriting inputs mid-execution. In that disarray, Valkyrie struck. Its arrival wasn't visual. It didn't appear on sensors. It manifested as catastrophic failure across systems. One ship's internal compartments vented into vacuum without breach. Another's engine core imploded under stable conditions. Railguns misfired. Hulls twisted in unnatural angles. The fleet turned inward, weapons targeting phantom echoes. Rourke wasn't just attacking. He was dissecting. Every move was calculated not just to destroy, but to unnerve, confuse, and destabilize. He used the Dominion's rigid coordination against them. Once their synchronization cracked, they became isolated targets, individually powerful, collectively blind. The AI aboard Valkyrie adapted in real time. Every Zorathi countermeasure was studied, broken, and mirrored back. New tactics were generated mid-battle. When Dominion ships attempted to retreat, their fold space drives failed, overridden by pulse bursts that distorted trajectory equations. Some ended up in deep gravity wells. Others folded back into their own minds. One ship's logs recovered later showed a single word repeating in its system memory: observed. Within an hour, 37 of the 50 warships were lost. The rest scattered, refusing central command. The Hive Cores, massive structures of living architecture, initiated emergency separation protocols. They split into subnodes, each carrying fragments of the core AI to prevent total loss. Rourke allowed it. Not out of mercy, but purpose. He wanted them to carry fear back. The message wasn't about Earth's strength, it was about human will. The Dominion operated on predictable logic, power, suppression, dominance. They had never faced a species that designed vengeance into its contingency protocols. Back on their outer command station, Zorathi strategists reviewed what little data remained. They discovered inconsistencies. Human technology wasn't supposed to exceed theirs. Yet the weapons used by Valkyrie operated on principles they couldn't decode: field compression beyond known physics, energy signatures that didn't match the output, offensive maneuvers that bent light away from cause and effect. More disturbing were the psychological effects. Surviving crew members from fractured Hive ships reported hallucinations. Time loops. Internal clocks desynchronized from real time. One officer's report contained a hand-drawn sketch of a figure, Rourke's face, though no image of him had ever been shared. Panic was not a concept in Dominion doctrine. But uncertainty was. And now it spread. Rourke had achieved something more effective than a clean victory. He had introduced a variable they couldn't contain, a human capable of outmaneuvering their best systems, operating alone, without oversight or support, using a vessel buried in history and surrounded by myths. And he wasn't finished. With the fleet in ruin and Sol secure, Valkyrie didn't return to orbit. It didn't wait for further orders. It initiated its next phase, autonomous, targeting across the Dominion's outer ring. One system after another lit up with threat markers. Rourke set a course. Humanity wasn't hiding anymore. They had sent a warning. Now they were sending consequences. The first outer ring target was a Dominion resource node, Zerath Prime, a barren moon-turned-industrial hub. It supplied refined alloys and data cores to 8 nearby sectors. Its orbital defenses were automated, its surface operations run by sub-hive intelligences. Rourke didn't engage them directly. He introduced a virus, delivered via compressed signal, that destabilized their operational logic. Within minutes, refinery drones attacked their own infrastructure. Storage silos vented their contents into space. Communications collapsed into static loops. No kinetic strike was necessary. The system destroyed itself. In the aftermath, Dominion traffic avoided the area. No recovery attempt followed. That wasn't standard procedure. The usual protocol would be to reclaim, reinforce, retaliate. Instead, Command rerouted supply chains, abandoned the node. They weren't adapting. They were avoiding. The next strike followed immediately, Zirin 4, a research colony focused on atmospheric conversion. This time, Valkyrie didn't use a virus. It deployed kinetic rods from deep orbit, projectiles that traveled too fast to be tracked, let alone intercepted. Facilities ceased to exist in the span of seconds. No warning. No aftermath worth salvaging. The shockwaves triggered tectonic failure across the planet. The colony vanished beneath volcanic collapse. Dominion officials launched an inquiry. They suspected internal sabotage, some external actor exploiting Dominion weakness, but not humanity. Earth was still classified as a Class II developing species. No alliance. No known FDL expansion. Every assumption in their archives worked against recognizing the truth. Until the third attack. Valkyrie breached a relay station near the Tavalis Gate. It was a central communications node linking dozens of sectors. There was no subtlety this time. The ship appeared on scans. Rourke wanted to be seen. Within 3 minutes, the relay was in ruins. Every attempt to transmit out was blocked. Valkyrie broadcast a wide-spectrum signal just once. "You are not the apex." That line triggered emergency reclassification. Earth was upgraded to a hostile unknown with unrestricted military priority. The Dominion scrambled to respond, but their war engines were not built for improvisation. Their campaigns operated on momentum, overwhelming force, and centralized hierarchy. Valkyrie thrived on none of those things. It didn't seek occupation. It struck and vanished. And it did so with precision born of understanding. Rourke knew how they thought. He had read their patterns, analyzed their responses, studied their fallback plans. He exploited their blind faith and control. Every target he chose was critical to communication, supply, or cohesion. No symbolic strikes. Every move carved out a hole in their infrastructure. Zorathi leadership attempted a countermeasure. They assembled a high-speed intercept fleet, equipped with adaptive AI and weapons reconfigured from the last battle logs. They spread their ships across a wide arc to prevent blind spots. For the first few hours, they detected nothing. Then their ships began reporting false positives, dozens of Valkyrie-class signals in multiple locations. The real ship wasn't among them. While they pursued echoes, Rourke infiltrated a listening post orbiting the gas giant Pelos. He disabled its sensor array and redirected its long-range dish to loop a broadcast back into Dominion command systems. The loop contained a single moment of audio, the original human transmission, slightly altered. "You shouldn't have come here. Now we are coming to you." No one had ever spoken to the Dominion that way. Not as petitioners. Not as equals. As predators. Back on Earth, most of humanity still didn't know what was happening. The Valkyrie project remained buried. The losses from the Zorathi's first strike had been severe, but localized. Governments had only begun to piece together the timeline. There was no public mobilization, no planetary war effort. One man and one machine had acted before bureaucracy could react. Within a standard cycle, 7 Dominion systems experienced failures linked to Valkyrie. Orbital industries burned, transport lanes collapsed, command AIs fragmented under cyber intrusion. No survivors ever saw the ship itself, only aftermath, evidence, fear. By the time Dominion High Council met to reassess their Earth strategy, the term retaliation no longer appeared in their internal lexicon. Now, their focus shifted to containment. Not conquest. Not victory. Just an end to the bleeding. But Rourke had no interest in containment. He wasn't there to send warnings anymore. His actions were no longer reactive. Each strike pushed forward, deeper into Dominion territory. His mission had become clear. He wasn't defending humanity. He was dismantling a regime. One system at a time. The Dominion Central Command, located in the core system of Zorai Nexus, was no longer silent. For the first time in generations, they held emergency war council every cycle. Projections no longer dealt in expansion or occupation. They focused only on loss mitigation. Strategic AIs failed to account for Valkyrie's path because it had no pattern, no logic according to their models. Their analysts were forced to admit it. Human action had become unpredictable, not due to chaos, but because of deliberate intent. Calculated asymmetry. Tactical defiance that disrespected their entire doctrine. Dozens of Dominion sectors had already gone dark. The pattern of destruction proved clear only after the damage: nodes of influence, communication relays, and data storage clusters. Rourke wasn't destroying their weapons. He was erasing their memory. Disrupting command knowledge, corrupting records, sabotaging central archives. This was strategic decapitation. Without information, no empire could maintain direction. And Valkyrie made sure they couldn't retain a single intact record of its capabilities. Internal dissent grew. High-caste Zorathi began isolating their subfleets, choosing not to engage unless absolutely necessary. Paranoia spread faster than orders. Autonomous war platforms refused coordination requests, fearing infiltration. Civilian transports rerouted far beyond conflict zones, triggering trade collapse. Even propaganda systems fell silent. Dominion cohesion had started to fracture from the inside. The enemy hadn't invaded. It had simply removed the illusion of control. Rourke didn't care about how they interpreted his campaign. He cared only about finishing it. His next strikes were deeper than ever, towards systems thought immune to conflict. Valkyrie bypassed defensive satellites and command barriers with ease. Not by brute force, but through precision timing and data manipulation. Rourke exploited the Dominion's own protocols, turning their failsafes into vulnerabilities. Backup arrays overloaded. Self-healing systems looped into perpetual resets. Firewalls collapsed before any engagement began. No hostages were taken. No messages sent. Valkyrie didn't ask for surrender. That option had never been on the table. To Rourke, this wasn't war, it was correction. He didn't see himself as a soldier anymore. He saw the Dominion as an infection that had survived too long on fear and inevitability. His mission wasn't retribution. It was termination. Dominion intelligence finally located a probable trajectory, a vector heading directly toward the Zorai Nexus, the core of their civilization. Every military unit in range was redirected for interception. For the first time, they committed their elite, Omega-class carriers, void crawlers, gravitational war barges. Over 600 ships formed a living wall at the edge of the sector. Valkyrie never entered it. Instead, it sent a data pulse that collapsed the local star's outer shell by triggering magnetic resonance within containment satellites orbiting its surface. The shockwave destabilized the gravitational frame of the entire system. The defense fleet scattered in seconds. Half were lost to the resulting collapse. No ship ever saw its attacker. The message was clear. No safe zones existed anymore. Rourke wasn't hunting fleets, he was targeting foundations. Dominion leadership made one last move. They attempted negotiation through a neutral relay. A message was broadcast across 6 languages, including ancient Terran dialects. It offered truce, withdrawal, reparation. Rourke received the transmission. He read it once. Then deleted it. He had made peace with the cost of his choices long before stepping aboard Valkyrie. He remembered Earth burning. He remembered orbital stations shredded while governments hesitated, paralyzed by fear of escalation. He remembered how easily the Zorathi had struck. There would be no treaties. Valkyrie began its final operation, a complete data cascade across the Central Dominion archive sphere. Not just corruption, but forced memory collapse. Rourke injected a fractal virus that devoured not just files, but context, removing timelines, redacting events, erasing the identity of entire campaigns. The Dominion wouldn't simply lose power. It would forget how it had ever held it. When it was over, the core servers went dark. The Zorathi would continue. Their species would survive. But their empire would not. What remained would be fragmented memories, disconnected systems, and stories of a human vessel that moved like silence and struck like finality. Rourke set Valkyrie on a drift path into deep space. Its systems went dark. No return course. No beacon. His task was complete. Humanity had not begged for survival. It had sent a single warship. And that had been enough.